Welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a crucial PTE listening task, multiple choice, multiple answers. This question type requires a sharp ear for detail and the ability to distinguish between main ideas and subtle distractors. I'll guide you through a real-world example, showing you how to track key information and verify each option against the recording to ensure you maximize your score. If you find these strategies helpful for your PTE journey, be sure to follow my PTE Pro for more deep dive lessons. Let's keep working together to reach your target score. We are about to hear a lecture on a landmark archaeological discovery. To stay ahead, use your notepad to jot down specific names and dates as they are mentioned. Ready? Let's dive into the recording. Today, we're examining one of the most important archaeological finds in history, the Rosetta Stone.
Today, we're examining one of the most important archaeological finds in history, the Rosetta Stone. Discovered in 1799 by French soldiers during Napoleon's Egyptian campaign, this slab of granodiorite provided the essential key to understanding ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Now, what's interesting here is that the stone isn't just a random list of words, it's a royal decree issued in 196 BC. The same text is inscribed in 3 different scripts: ancient Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphic. For centuries, scholars had mistakenly believed that hieroglyphs were purely symbolic or ideographic, meaning each picture represented a whole idea. Let me give you an example of how that changed. British polymath Thomas Young made the first major breakthrough by identifying that the royal names, enclosed in oval shapes called cartouches, were written phonetically. However, it was the French linguist Jean-François Champollion who finally cracked the code in 1822. Champollion's deep knowledge of Coptic, the descendant language of ancient Egyptian, allowed him to realize that the writing system was a complex mix of phonetic, alphabetic, and ideographic elements. This discovery effectively reopened the door to 3,000 years of Egyptian history that had been silent for over a millennium. It illustrates how linguistic continuity can bridge the gap between a lost civilization and the modern world.
The speaker introduces the Rosetta Stone as a discovery of immense historical magnitude, describing it as one of the most important archaeological finds ever recorded. This opening establishes the artifact as the central subject and emphasizes its unprecedented value to the field of history. The text provides specific context, noting the object was discovered in 1799 by French soldiers during a military expedition. It further explains the stone's significance as the essential key that allowed researchers to finally decode ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. The speaker clarifies the nature of the text, explaining that it is a royal decree rather than a random list of words. By dating the inscription to 196 BC, the passage highlights its status as a formal administrative document from antiquity. The core utility of the artifact stems from the fact that the same text is repeated across 3 different scripts. These specific writing systems, ancient Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphic, provided the cross-references necessary for scholars to begin their translations. Historically, scholars were under the impression that the script was purely symbolic or ideographic, a view that the speaker notes they mistakenly believed. This misconception relied on the idea that every individual image represented a whole idea, overlooking any potential phonetic structure. This sentence acts as a bridge, promising a specific example to illustrate the shift in academic thought. It prepares the audience to hear about the specific evidence that caused the traditional understanding to be changed. The first major breakthrough is credited to Thomas Young, who focused his analysis on royal names. By observing these names within oval shapes called cartouches, he correctly deduced that the characters were written phonetically rather than just symbolically. The narrative shifts to Jean-François Champollion, the scholar who finally cracked the code of the script. The year 1822 is highlighted as the definitive point in history when the mystery of the hieroglyphs was fully resolved. Success was largely due to Champollion's deep knowledge of Coptic, which the speaker identifies as the descendant language of the ancient tongue. This linguistic link helped him realize that hieroglyphs were actually a complex mix of various linguistic components, including phonetic, alphabetic, and ideographic elements. By decoding the stone, researchers effectively reopened the door to a vast timeline of Egyptian history. This breakthrough restored the voice of a civilization that had been silent for over a millennium, allowing for a direct study of their records and culture. The final sentence reflects on the broader lesson of the discovery, emphasizing how linguistic continuity can serve as a bridge. It suggests that surviving linguistic threads are what ultimately connect a lost civilization to the perspectives of the modern world. In this multiple choice, multiple answers task, you need to identify every statement that is supported by the audio. Listen carefully for details regarding names, dates, and the specific nature of the linguistic discoveries to ensure your selections are grounded in the evidence provided. The Rosetta Stone was discovered during a scientific expedition in the 14th century. The mention of a 14th century discovery during a scientific expedition is factually incorrect according to the recording. The audio explicitly states that the stone was discovered in 1799 by French soldiers, which places the event in the late 18th century during a military campaign. Correct. Jean-François Champollion utilized his proficiency in the Coptic language to help decode the scripts. The recording highlights that Champollion's deep knowledge of Coptic was the specific factor that allowed him to realize the complex nature of the writing. Since Coptic is described as the descendant language of ancient Egyptian, his proficiency in it was the key tool used in the decipherment process. Incorrect. Thomas Young's contribution involved the realization that proper names within cartouches were represented phonetically. This choice accurately reflects the major breakthrough attributed to Thomas Young in the lecture. In the lecture, he identified that royal names, which were enclosed in oval shapes called cartouches, were actually written phonetically, providing the first evidence that the script was not purely symbolic. Correct. Problem. Prior to its decipherment, scholars widely believed hieroglyphs were entirely phonetic. The speaker notes that scholars had actually mistakenly believed the opposite of this statement. For centuries, the consensus was that the scripts were purely symbolic or ideographic, meaning the idea that they were entirely phonetic was not the widely held belief prior to the discovery. Incorrect. The stone's text was inscribed in 3 distinct scripts, including ancient Greek and Demotic. The recording explicitly confirms that the same text was presented in 3 different scripts. It goes on to name ancient Greek and Demotic as 2 of those specific systems, making this description a faithful summary of the stone's physical characteristics. Correct. To succeed in multiple choice, multiple answers, always remember that accuracy is more important than quantity due to the negative marking system. Only select an option if you can point to specific evidence in your notes that confirms it. Focus on identifying key nouns and verbs during the audio to build a reliable evidence base for your final choices.